Curious about the mind game and what we chat about on the Mind Game Level Up Your Life podcast? Join me for a recap of Season 1.
Welcome to Mind Game, a podcast to level up your life. My name is Pipke-Painchaud, and I'm excited for you to join me on a journey behind the scenes where we'll dig into the stories of resilience, mindset, and unlock the simple habits that will help you change the game. Before we dive in, I want to express our gratitude for your continued support. Your energy powers our quest to provide content that encourages you to unlock new levels of personal growth and step out of your own comfort zone. If you're inspired by an idea or have a suggestion for a future topic, connect with us at mindgamelevelupyourlife.com. Your feedback is a power-up that helps us continue on this epic adventure. So if you're ready to get out of your own way and explore what you didn't know you needed to know, you've come to the right place. So buckle up, open up your mind. It's time to level up.
Welcome to the Mind Game. That's what I said on the very first episode. And here we are 29 episodes later. Thank you for being with me on this journey. This is a Season 1 recap of Mind Game Level Up Your Life. So we're going to go back through and look at how many guests we had, which was 11. There are 28 episodes in total, 29 with this one. So we are going to recap some of my favorite things from each episode. And then we are officially into the summer series. And so I will return again in the fall. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow along on our email list so you don't miss any of the amazing episodes that we have coming up. Over the summer, I'm going to interview more guests. I will give you little bits of highlights from them as we talk to them over the summer. And then you'll get the full episodes in the fall, complete with an update of a brand new studio that I'll be broadcasting from, and a brand new location that we are moving to. So stay tuned for the summer series, but let's go back and reflect on the year that was. Or let's go back and reflect on Season 1. All of these are part of Season 1. So if you haven't checked out the Mind Game Level Up Your Life website, that's www.mindgamelevelupyourlife.com. What we're going to do is work through those different episodes, and we'll talk a little bit about some of my favorite things. So this is 47 was the very first episode. In this one, I broke down what the podcast was going to be about. It was my very first attempt at podcasting, and it was sort of my breakout episode. It was my birthday. And again, this is 47 is about finding your voice and meeting new people and learning how we can level up our life. In the first episode, I shared some of my favorite books, kind of what to expect. We still need a dig-in episode with Sadie, so hopefully that's coming up. Maybe a fun episode where we do, what are things that kids say? What do teenagers say these days? And we'll see if we can have some parents interpret what some of those sayings mean. So if you have some suggestions for phrases or words that would have been popular in our time that we could use to share with young teens as they're trying to stump their parents with the cool words of the day. Cool, that dates me as well. But send those in to me, we'll add them to the list. In episode 2 and 3, we talked to Tiffany Egbert. She is currently living in Ubud, Bali, and she talked to us about the art of creativity, how to get unstuck from when we get stuck in our own thoughts. She asked us the questions of when did we stop being creative? When did we stop doing those things that bring us joy? And how can we refine those different pieces? So if you're curious about stepping into your magic, that was episode 2 and 3. And one of, I think, my favorite parts from episode 2 and 3 was when she said, instead of following your passion, which people get really stressed out about, what if I don't know what it is that I'm supposed to do with my life? She said, what if instead of following our passion, we followed our curiosity? And I think that was one of the aha moments in that episode was, what if you followed what you're interested in? Because what you're interested in often is something you can learn more about. When you learn more about it, you gain that experience, and that pulls you in to your passion. So the question to you right now from episode 2 was, are you doing what you love? Is what you do every day bringing you joy and happiness? Do you have those creative outlets in your life? In part 2 of the interview with Tiffany, we dug into the work that she's doing on Stepping Into Your Magic, which is Tiffany's podcast that you can check out on Spotify and Apple. We dug into yoga. We talked about breath work. It's amazing how many times breath work has come back to us over the course of this year in learning how to regulate ourselves, how it can help take us deeper, how it can settle us, and how it can calm us. And one of the things that she talked about was whatever you choose to do, be consistent. So it takes practice, it takes time. And Charlene reminded us more recently that they call yoga a practice for a reason. So the practice, and I think this was Allison who talked about it, the practice begins often just when you think it should end. Or that's what she said about yoga poses. When you think the yoga pose is over, that's when it really actually starts. So Tiffany talked to us about staying consistent in what we do. She talked to us about setting an intention and using the time that we have purposefully. And she talked about finding ways to step into your magic and find your purpose and power. If you're interested in that, go back and check out episode 2 and 3 with Tiffany Egbert from Bali, from the other side of the world. And I met her through my podcasting class. So our next guest was Kacey, and that was right around when I was starting to record my podcast. Kacey had this post that showed up on Facebook, and her 3 dogs had gone missing. They found 2 that had been hit on the highway, and then it was the search for Gunners. So right around Christmas, we visited the story of Kacey and her family as they searched for Gunner over an entire week. And so what resonated with me in that episode was the faith that they had to find Gunner, to search, and how a community united behind them to help take that search forward and to help find Gunner. And so a sad start to the story, but a happy ending, and Gunner is doing well today. They actually have added another dog to their family, so you can check out Kacey's posts on Facebook. So thank you to Kacey for joining us. I met Kacey through an entrepreneurial journey, and we've stayed friends on Facebook. So shout out to Facebook for all of the connections that we make there. I know Facebook puts us in the older generation. So Kacey's a story of hope, faith, and that return home and never giving up on what you believe is out there. That was episode 4. And then after, I think it was New Year's, it was the first episode in the new year, we talked to Katie White. And when we talked to Katie, those were the episodes, the lessons of the in-between and the nevers that shape our story. Some of probably the most influential podcasting episodes of this season, because I think it applies to all of us. In part 1, the lessons of the in-between, Katie talked about that space between something that you know, something that you're familiar with, that it's a safe space for you. You know you need to let go of that safe space to get to the other side. So the in-between zone is that in-between space where you're just not sure, you think you know where you're going, it's not maybe happening as quickly, but it's that space between different times in our lives, the different chapters in our lives. And I think the analogy that stuck out to me most in that first episode with Katie, when she talked about the space between, she said, imagine we're on a river. And she said, we're getting in a canoe, so we're going to paddle across the river. She said, if we were paddling across a lake, we would get from point A to point B because there's no currents pushing us anywhere. But when we get in a canoe and we let go, when we get brave enough to let go of the shore, that current is going to make it harder for us to go directly across the river. And often we think this change is going to lead directly across to the change in front of us there. But it turns out when we're brave enough to let go of the shore and we paddle, even though we're paddling hard, the current is still moving us downstream. And sometimes we keep trying to fight that. Sometimes we have to learn to sit in the uncomfortable space, that in-between space where we know what we left. We don't know exactly where we're going. We don't think it's happening fast enough. And sometimes we just have to relax into that discomfort and trust the process. And so I've experienced that in this last year where we were trying to decide if we were moving to a new community or not moving to a new community. And so we have let go of the shore. We are fully into that process now. So stay tuned for updates in the fall and over the summer. But Katie said when you get in that canoe and you're paddling and you want to get to the other side, you can keep paddling and it is work. You have to keep moving towards something. But sometimes where you end up maybe isn't where you thought you should be, but it's in a place that's somewhere better, or it's the next part of your journey and it will grow from there. So don't be afraid of what's around the bend. Sometimes that is better than you could ever have imagined. So that was the space between. I would say, if I was in the classroom, I'd say hands up if anybody can relate to that. So if you can relate to the space between, you'll want to check out that episode with Katie. We came back the following week with a follow-up episode, which was called The Nevers. that shape our story. And Katie and I had a great conversation talking about, and this was again from the question that I asked, what's the best thing that never happened? And she listed all sorts of different nevers. And she talked about how we seem to have a purpose in life, and sometimes we don't know what that purpose is, and sometimes it feels like it's a lot of work, and we keep getting pushed back towards that purpose, and sometimes it's a little bit heavier coat to wear, I think is what she said. But sometimes the things that don't happen actually push us closer towards our purpose. So that was one of the episodes. We had a lot of feedback from viewers. All of those things that don't happen, perhaps they're pushing us back towards what our purpose actually is. And if we're brave enough to let go, we can end up somewhere even more amazing than where we thought we were going. So have faith in the journey and keep moving forward. In episodes 7 and 8 of the Mind Game podcast, we met Allison Wyman, a caregiving attorney located in New York, and she shared her story with us. So the name of her episode was inspired by something that she said. So the first episode with Allison was walking each other home. And what she said during the podcast was, we're all here to walk each other home. And it just made me think about the connections that we have with people and how often we lean on each other, or how often we could reach out and connect with others around us, because we are truly all here to walk each other home. She talked to us about being a caregiving attorney and helping to plan for the times when you become the caregiver to your parents and how the roles are reversed. And she talked to us about planning ahead so that when you reach that time, all you need to do is be in the moment. You don't have to do all the behind the scenes work in planning things forward. And if you were curious about that, Allison developed a course that she shared with us. And in the next episode, she talked about navigating the storms of life. She talked about how we know those hard times are coming. And the more work that we do in advance, the more we can be in that moment and appreciate that journey and feel the emotions and navigate our way through and lean on and create that network of people that we can connect with and reach out to. After Allison Wyman, we talked to Jason Brooks. So I met Jason Brooks through an entrepreneurial venture, and he was the VP of finance. We found out that Jason also worked at Amazon. He worked at Microsoft, and he talked about sometimes those endings are really new beginnings. And I think the catchphrase that Jason talked about was, if someone else can do it, why can't I? And so if you're interested in it and you want to learn about it, find the people that can teach you. Jason, in partnership with a few other people, started his own real fiction studios where they do special effects makeup. He's also writer, actor, and director. And so we talked to him about how he got into the horror film genre, how he got into special effects, and what he's learned from that journey. One of the things that Jason kept coming back to is that you don't get anywhere by yourself. You surround yourself with an amazing team and you will all rise up together. He talks about the magic of bringing storytelling to life. And again, his phrase was, if everybody else can do it, why can't I? In part 1 of our conversation with Jason, that was bringing real fiction to life. And in the second part with Jason, we talked about when fiction becomes real. And again, we talked to him about his writer, actor, director role and behind the scenes work. And we talked about navigating creativity. How do you search for inspiration? He talked about finding inspiration all around us. And he also talked about the nevers. And he had an example of a never in progress, push you closer to the things that you were truly meant to do. The other thing that Jason said is life is full of ups and downs. And so know that if it's harder now, life will go up and down. And as you navigate the ups and downs of life, just like Charlene said, this too shall pass. And eventually it will get better and you can level yourself up in each one. You can connect with new people and you can learn more through every journey. So the next episode was episode 11 and 12, and that was the solo edition, the level up edition of the Mind Game podcast. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then when we rejoined in episode 13 and 14, we talked to Amy Capeller, and she is a functional nutritionist. And one of the things that stood out to me was she said, you wouldn't ignore the warning lights on a car. So why are you ignoring the messages that your body is sending you that could help you to feel more energetic, to sleep better, to feel healthier? And she encouraged us to look at how we're living life and what is our body telling us and how can we use that to move forward. And so we talked to her about rebalancing and thriving and the rise of resilience. One of the things in the first part of our conversation with Amy was rebalance and thrive, cultivating health from the inside out. And what she talked about was that the body is sending us signs all of the time. And if you think of symptoms as messages from the body, your body is telling you all sorts of different things. And if you're not sure how to interpret those signs, reach out to someone like Amy, to your doctor, to your other holistic wellness practitioners. They can help you interpret those signs and increase your energy, level up your life so that you can start to feel better. She talked to us a little bit about the importance of the gut-brain connection. She talked to us about the importance of understanding where your hormones are at and how that impacts how you're feeling. And again, she encouraged us to listen to our bodies. So what is your body telling you, and how can that empower you to take back and rebalance your life so that you feel better, have more energy, and you are just ready to level up your life. So that was part 1 with Amy. And then we went to part 2, and we looked at the power of embracing change and how that change can come in a variety of ways, whether that's in your life, whether that's through choosing the foods that you eat, whether it's paying more attention to your body, to pursuing more education. We talked about how that change can take you closer to your purpose, and you have to be brave enough to step into what you truly want to do. She talks about her journey from education into functional nutrition and her journey to help her clients level up their life. And she talks about Unbridled Holistic Health, which is her business, and how she came about that name, which has an interesting story. One of the things that she said that resonated was, we only get one body to live this life. And she said, it's not like a car that you can trade in when the car starts to wear out. We only have one body. So how we treat ourselves, what we put in, the work, the exercise that we do, the stress that we're under, all of that affects this one vehicle that we have to travel through life. And so she is on a quest to help women level up their hormonal health through functional nutrition and a variety of other areas so that you can rebalance, get more energy, and learn how to level up your life. So if you're curious about that, go back and check out Amy's episodes. Every single episode always has something that resonates with me. So in the episode, The Money Mind Game, Unlocking the Wealth Within, we talked to my brother-in-law, Ross, about that money mindset. We dug into some limiting beliefs that we might not even realize that we have around money. And we talked about that connection between money and mindset and how the work that he does supporting people in choosing their financial investments to working with life insurance is often a conversation that helps to identify some of those limiting beliefs and how we can start to shift some of that. Now, one of the things that we hit on was, we know we need to put money away for the future. We know that that's important, but we don't really have a clear identity of who that future us is. Do I really know what future Stephanie will do, what she looks like, why it matters that I put that money away today? And so one of the things we talked about is imagining, what is that life that you want? Who are you in the future? And when we talk a little bit more about Jane McGonigal and her most recent book, Imaginable, we'll talk a little bit about EFT, or episodic future thinking. And one of the things that you do is time jump. So you pick a time in the future, and then you imagine what it's like to be 20 years ahead or 30 years ahead. So if you can jump ahead to a time that you're retired and you think about, what am I doing? Where am I living? What do I look like? Who am I talking to? What would I do on a typical day? And you get to know that future version of yourself, you're much more likely in the present moment to make a plan that helps future Stephanie or the future you a lot more than if it's just that person that's, in 10 years I'll retire. So who is that person? How do you want to help them? What can you do now that makes a difference to them later? So we talked about common money mindset beliefs. We talked about paying yourself first in the budget, so that's putting away for your future self. We did talk about procrastination and how we often do that a lot with money. And then we went into part 2. We talked about forging a legacy, how personal growth shapes future generations. And he talked about wanting to leave a legacy. So beyond just impacting people in your immediate family, how can you impact generations to come? And what difference can you make investing today in shifting your mindset? So we dug into those. We continued our conversation with those limiting beliefs and looked at how sometimes society seems to put us in a certain category and we think that we can't get to the next level. And that's simply that the limiting belief is us. And often the person who's in the way is often us. We're often in our own way. And so we dug into our personal journeys and our mindsets. We looked a little bit about how setting a goal, knowing who that future self is, can help us to move forward in that direction. And if you have any questions about anything financial related, you can check out the podcast with Ross. You can also reach out to Ross and his wife, Lisa. my sister-in-law for more information on that. So again, one of the things in the Mind Game podcast is to connect you with people you didn't know that you needed to know. And part of the journey, somebody said, what would you love to do with life? And when I really thought about that, what I would love to do is just learn new things, learn about the things that I'm interested in and share them with you as viewers. So that is my plan for the future. I have some things in development for you. And if you want to stay connected with us, make sure that you subscribe, make sure you join our email list so that you don't miss out on all of the fun things coming up. I have quite a list of guests started for next season. So season 2 will begin in September once we've moved into our new location. Once the year is going, we're all back to work. So I do work in education. And so the end of August and early September is a busy time, but be sure to subscribe so that you know when we are back. And that was the first half of season 1. Drop a comment, let us know which one was your favorite episode. Was there an episode that you rewatched? Or one that really resonated with you? We'd love for you to share your favorites and invite your friends to Mind the Game so that we can all level up our lives. Thanks so much for listening to this season. Remember to check out the show notes for links to all of the episodes that I mentioned in this recap episode. And be sure to join us next week for the last half of the season recap. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for choosing to listen to Mind Game, a podcast to level up your life. We hope that you've enjoyed the insights, inspiration, and habits shared in this episode. Your support is a game changer, and we are incredibly grateful to be on this journey with such an amazing community of listeners. If you have any wonders, questions, or suggestions about this or future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media and share your feedback. Remember, you can catch all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us bring valuable content to you, our listeners. Don't want to miss the next episode? Join our Facebook group and email list and get ahead of the game. Until next time, remember to mind the game so that you can get out of your own way and level up your life.